Welcome to episode 13 of Historizing the MC Culture, the Sergeant at Arms position. I'm your host, Prophet, member of Outcast Motorcycle Club, and in this episode, I seek to explore the origins of the term Sergeant at Arms. We're going to take a look at its historical evolution and also its current place in parliamentary procedures as well as the MC culture. So let's get started, man. In comparison to the corporate structure and position, you think of this position, the Sergeant at Arms, as equivalent to the chief corporation's chief of security officer. And the Sergeant at Arms is an officer who's appointed by a deliberative body, which is usually a legislative, and it's used to keep order during these meetings. The word sergeant is derived from the Latin word serviens, which means obviously servant. A sergeant at arms is a servant. Other sources have the word originating from medieval vulgar sergente, who was a veteran foot soldier who was equipped with a long pike, and the sergente would march alongside of the infantry company, and they kept the man in these tight ranks. The term sergeant can be given two main definitions. The first being a military role and the other a governmental role. And whereas technically the two roles were not mutually exclusive, they were very different roles and duties. And so the soldier sergeant was a man that would be thought of as the middle class, fulfilling a slightly junior role to the knight in terms of medieval hierarchy. Sergeants could fight either as heavy to light cavalry or as well-trained professional infantry, either spearmen or crossbowmen. Most notable medieval mercenaries fell into the sergeant class, such as crossbowmen and spearmen, who were seen as pretty reliable and quality troops. The sergeant class was deemed to be worth half of a knight, and that's in terms of military value. The office originated in medieval England to serve the sovereign in much like a police role, and think of it like a bailiff in more recent times. And indeed, the Sergeant at Arms constitutes the oldest royal bodyguard in England. And this is dating back to the time of King Richard I, somewhere around 1189. The Sergeant at Arms was a personal attendant to the king. And he was especially charged with arresting those suspected of treason. If we look at history, Richard I had 24 with him when he was on the Crusades. And those men were formed into 20-strong corps of Sergeant at Arms by King Edward I, and that was in 1278. And they was used as a mounted close escort to him. In 1399, King Richard II limited the corps to only 30 sergeants. And then King Charles II had 16. And then the number was reduced to 8 in 1685, and then since then, the number of sergeants have gradually declined. The original responsibilities of the Sergeant at Arms included such duties such as collecting loans and impressing men and ships and serving on local administration, and in all sorts of ways interfering with local administration and justice. Around the year 1415, the British House of Commons received its first Sergeant at Arms. And then from that time onwards, the sergeant has been a royal appointment. The sergeant being one of the sovereign Sergeant at Arms, and the House of Lords even has a similar officer. So the formal role of the Sergeant at Arms in modern legislative bodies is to keep order during meetings, and, if necessary, and forcibly remove any members who are overly rowdy or disruptive. A Sergeant at Arms may thus be a retired officer or a soldier or someone with some type of military experience in security. In recent times, The position has often become quite ceremonial, with the actual ability to eject members not being necessary a part of the requirement. The Sergeant-at-Arms at the House of Commons, for example, has general charge of certain administrative and custodial functions, as well as security within the chamber, and the Chamber of Commerce per se. In imitation, a variety of other bodies from, let's talk about state, local legislative houses, city councils, county legislators and like, and we're talking about to civic and social organizations like Masonic and fraternal and things like that, even all the way down to us motorcycle clubs, have a position of Sergeant-at-Arms, which is primarily to enforce order at the direction of the chair and to assist in practical details of organized meetings. So, applicable in MC culture, the Sergeant-at-Arms is responsible for ensuring that the bylaws and the standing rules of the club are not violated, and that orders of the chapter officers are executed in an expeditious manner. He or she is responsible for policing and keeping order at all meetings and club events. They're responsible for securing patches and colors and other club paraphernalia from any member who voluntarily resigns or is involuntarily dismissed. They're responsible for the safety, security of the club, as well as the protection and defense of its members, prospects, property, and associates. The Sergeant-at-Arms is the head of security of the club and also the personal bodyguard of the president. The Sergeant-at-Arms should be level-headed, able to think their way out of a situation rather than be quick to resort to brute force or weaponry. They should be well-versed in avoiding confrontation, but equally able to win in battle. They should be legally able to carry a firearm, well-trained on how to use it and its identification. They should be able to use a knife in combat as well as defend themselves against a knife attack. The Sergeant-at-Arms should know the weapons laws of the various states that the club travels to and brief this information to the members. Also, the Sergeant-at-Arms should know the politics of the land where the club is and know the relationships and the temperature between the clubs in that area. The Sergeant-at-Arms should have some basic knowledge of what members carry what weapons on them at all times. The Sergeant-at-Arms is authorized to put hands on any member within the club and is expected to do so within the scope of their duties. The Sergeant-at-Arms is responsible for the prospect program even. And that program is designed by the Sergeant-at-Arms, and it is the duties of the Sergeant-at-Arms to ensure that it's executed to standard. A prospect will still have a sponsor, and they have a prospect program, but that program is managed usually by the Sergeant-at-Arms within the scope of a motorcycle club. They're responsible for ensuring the prospect is not abused outside of what the program calls for. They're responsible for ensuring the sponsor and other members are adhering to the program rules and do not take advantage of the probie or the situation. The Sergeant-at-Arms should have the most serious mind and awareness while on duty. They should refrain from consumption of alcohol and mind-altering narcotics to the point where it affects their judgment and awareness. They should refrain from chasing personal objectives of the opposite sex while on duty. Their focus is and should always be on the safety of the club members and the personal protection of the president. And oftentimes, the Sergeant-at-Arms may appoint additional help, known as enforcers. These individuals are an extension of the Sergeant-at-Arms and answer to them and the president. Additionally, in some clubs, the Sergeant-at-Arms will not wear a position patch on their vests, and this is to not advertise who they are within the hierarchy of the club and make themselves a first target. The Sergeant-at-Arms is club security and should be taken with the utmost respect. This has been Historizing the MC Culture, episode 13. The Sergeant-at-Arms position. I hope you've been further enlightened, and I ask that you press like, leave a comment, and share so the next person is in the know. We all have a responsibility. Each one, reach one, teach one. This is Prophet. Peace.